See, I feel like this should be opposite.
I know, right? Green.
It should be green when you go.
But they do red because it's don't come in.
But people come in over there all the time.
Oh, damn, I forgot my water. Well, okay, let's go.
It's called like the real tea, and we don't even have tea. We should one day.
Just have teacups or what?
Yeah. We don't have to have tea in them.
Could be like Long Island tea. Some days really is worth it.
Yeah. So it is April, and what is it? Out like a lion and like a lamb, something like that. But
Yeah.
the lion is still around.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So last night, we're recording this on April 3rd, but it's not going to air till the 8th. There was some pretty big tornado activity and just crazy storms, not only in this area, but basically across the whole United States,
Yeah.
from Chicago all the way down to Texas. And this is not the first time it's happened this year already. We've had 2 in like the last 3 weeks.
Right.
And so I thought today we could talk about storm preparedness and just kind of the whole gamut, because, you know, it's been since 2019, so since we had a major tornado here, and people can forget.
Yeah. Well, 2019 was like 15 different communities that were taken out. So it was a very serious outbreak that we had. Of course, we've also had multiple incidences last year. You know, Indian Lake was hit. So
Oh, yeah.
we have
in
them
like the northern area.
all around our communities. It feels like we are definitely having more outbreaks now. But like you're talking about, this was massive. It reached, you know, stranded the whole north to south continent, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so I was watching YouTube, and the meteorologists on there were literally all over the map, because he was getting tornado warnings in Dayton, Ohio, and then in Kentucky and CVG, and then he would flip down to Memphis, and then there would be one from Texas, and then one from Chicago would pop up, and he literally last night, it was like every 30 seconds there was another warning coming up.
Did you see that massive one in Arkansas?
Yes.
Like, holy crap.
Yes. The videos of it today that are coming out look like it's AI, or like it's from that Twister movie.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine that it's legit. One of my agents lives in the Springboro area for last week when we had that weather that came through. And I'm like, hey, you might want to get to your safe spot. And he was like, 15 minutes heard the train, the sound of the train, which is literally the sound that the tornadoes make.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a long time to be worried about it.
Yeah.
Last night, our siren went off, and it was going off maybe 5 minutes total. But it's like, that was after they had cleared our area.
Yeah.
The local weather people, you know, that
Yeah.
we get our stuff from. So I think I'm going to start watching this guy you're talking about on YouTube. You
Yeah,
say-
so there's 2, and they're not related, but Ryan Hall, y'all, and the Y'all Squad, they're great. That's who I watch. That's like my go-to. Anytime there's any kind of storm weather activity in the United States, he does
Yeah.
like completely nationwide, and I think he's based in Kentucky, so
Okay.
kind of close to
So near.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, but he will go even as detailed all the way down to like, hey, it is hitting right here, and if you are at this cross streets, like, you need to be taking shelter. And if you are by this cemetery, like, that's the kind of alert preparedness that I like to have.
I
The other
got
one is
goosebumps.
right. The other one is Max Velocity,
Uh-huh.
and he's really good too. And both of these guys have like storm chasers on the ground, so you get to see like actual footage from their cars. They have other meteorologists that work with them, so they can tell you like, hey, we're predicting this. And I think they're more accurate than the local people.
Yeah, well, I think that's great information. I'm going to definitely check them out, just because you do want the resource of information. And when you get somebody telling you, hey, well, you've got the all clear, and then boom, something happens.
Yeah.
I'm never going to trust that source again. Like,
Right.
you gave me the all clear. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather you say, hey, you might want to be aware for the next couple of hours because, you know, and then I wouldn't have gone to sleep or
Right.
bed.
And one of the cool things is they're both on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you're not stuck to your TV that's in your living room right by your windows. Like,
Exactly.
if you got to go to your safe spot, whether that's a closet or a bathroom or a basement, you just take your phone with you.
Right.
And so last night when the siren started going off, I flipped it to my phone, grabbed my kids, ran downstairs, and then I didn't miss any of the weather alerts because they were on my phone.
Yeah.
And, it was seamless.
Well,
I didn't
that's
have to have a radio with batteries and, all the things that they tell you should have.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great backup stuff, but the information source that we have now with being in the palm of our hand in our phone is really so much more. And I'm not talking about being logged on to Facebook and having to find, are you on this group or do you need...
Yeah.
There's so many steps sometimes I find when I want to go live stream and find what is the latest with the weather. Just show me the radar so I can see what's going on. And
Yeah.
so I definitely look for valuable sources to say.
And my phone last night told me there was a hurricane.
Well, where were you?
I was in Dayton, Ohio. But I guess the winds were so strong
high, yeah.
that it was hitting like hurricane levels.
The one weather guy that I did listen to, he was saying that one of those weather storms, tornado activity, was having the debris field as high as 38,000 feet in the air. I'm like, that's freaking where planes are flying.
Yeah.
That is insane to think that there is that much wind spinning around and that much height going on.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, you don't want any M going out there.
Right. So I find it funny. This is like a total side story, but my favorite movie as a child was The Wizard of Oz. And so when everybody else is watching Barney or Teletubbies or whatever, I was like, no, Wizard of Oz. And then they had to fast forward it to where she would open the door in color because I just wasn't interested until then. But now I love tornadoes. I'm one to stand on the porch and film it and watch it.
Yeah.
I'm not one to be all scared and whatever.
We're definitely two sides of the story and the spectrum on this episode. Obviously from the Dayton, Ohio area, aging myself here, but the tornado that went through Xenia back in 1974.
Yeah.
Totally traumatic, and it is absolutely something that you don't really get over. And you do kind of get into this passive, it's just a storm blowing through, whatever. You kind of take a lot of things for granted. I feel like we've had more incidents now than I remember as a kid, less the tornado that hit Xenia, right? Because that was a major impact for that time frame. It wiped everything out.
There was two that hit. Yeah. There was the big one, and then there was
the follow-up.
Smaller big one.
The follow-up.
Yeah. And because the second one hit kind of where the Walmart is in Xenia.
Yes. Yeah. I found over the years that there's certainly some kind of a path that these things seem to take, which has always been concerning. It's like, oh, well, if that's where activity's going, maybe I don't want to go in that area to build anything or do anything.
But I think it can change, too, because Ohio didn't used to be in Tornado Alley, and now it is definitely part of Tornado Alley.
That's right. So climate change, whatever you want to say, has kind of helped to shift this, where, like you said, we're seeing these long tracks of these storms that break out from Texas all the way up to Ohio Valley. That's a pretty wide expanse of storms to really be watching out. And last night, I remember we had the first phase that was basically coming through maybe our northern communities, and then that lower phase that was coming through Kentucky that passed up and got into the Cincinnati-Dayton area. That was our spring communities. That's the one that hit at 1 o'clock. So it was like, hit me, and then it was coming your way. I'm like, hold on.
Because everything that kind of hit Indiana went north.
Yep.
And then just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
But we got the strong punch coming from the south.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that being said, I wanted to talk about the difference in a tornado warning and a watch.
Okay.
Because last night we got thunderstorm warnings, thunderstorm watches, tornado warnings, tornado watches. I think at one point there was even snow on there because,
the temperature was going to drop so drastically.
Well, and these storms started and they were reaching the Dakotas, which I guess they still have snow right now.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so a watch just means it's possible. It's in the area. And a thunderstorm watch just means there's thunderstorms likely to develop.
Right.
A warning means, hey, this has got some potential to cause some damage, but it's not, we're not showing the circular patterns that a tornado would have. And then so when you flip over to a tornado watch, that means, hey, it could develop, but warning means it's either confirmed by radar or confirmed by eyes on the ground.
Right.
And people have seen it. And I think last night we had the entire array of them.
We did. And then there was an interesting classification that they've also started to say about the type of storms that are coming through, whether they're just severe or they're destructive. Destructive was like what? They've added a new category because it just means that there's so much more that's going to go with it. It may not be a tornado is going to come out of it, but there's heavy enough straight line winds, definitely going to do some damage. So it's destructive or it's damaging. And I'm like, we're just creating all these new categories so people can have better understanding of what to be prepared for.
Yeah.
But there's nothing you can do aside get into your safe spot to prepare your exterior. Like, can you build a barrier that stops the trees from crushing down on your roof? Probably not. But can you, when it's not in the heat of this system, can you go out with a arborist, a tree specialist to say, hey, do I have any trees that are suspect, that are dead, that could be damaging if high winds come through? And that's something as a homeowner, right, you definitely would want to pay attention to, not just for resale value, but also for your own safety, because a dead tree is definitely going to be a prime target. If those winds start coming in at 50 miles an hour or greater, you've got a chance.
Yeah. And then last night also there was the PDS warnings. Did you see those?
No.
So that is a particularly dangerous situation.
Okay.
So those are like, take cover now.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Something else to know about, huh?
Yep.
Well, if I hear the siren, that's an immediate. Like, that's something triggered. And I know some of our communities were saying, hey, why didn't our sirens go off? And people are trying to explain today what their alarm system is. You mean we don't have consistent reasons for communities why the alarm or when the alarm goes off? Like, shouldn't that be standardized?
Or if you have a house that's very well insulated, you don't hear them going off.
Or if you had gone to bed.
Yeah.
If you went to bed after 11 o'clock news and 11:30 you go to bed.
Yeah.
Come 1 o'clock, you're probably in a sound sleep and would not hear that.
And that is when all of the dangerous, deadly tornadoes happen, is in the middle of the night, because people are asleep.
And they're not responding. They
Yeah.
don't know about it. And so they're not in their safe spot. They've just gone to bed like normal, which,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, our guys said, hey, you're all clear. And then 20 minutes later,
Yeah.
no.
So what can you do when you need to get ready for a tornado? So these are some tips that I did not know about, even being from Dayton and even having friends and family that lived through the Xenia tornadoes. One is put shoes on or take them to your safe spot.
Right.
So I didn't even realize, like, hey, if your house gets completely demolished,
You're going to have
you're
to be
gonna
able to
like
walk.
tear up your feet trying
Yeah.
to get out. Yeah. So and identify where your safe spot is. So whether that is, you know, a basement, or it needs to be not be by any windows, or it could be if you have like a ranch and a bathroom or a tub.
Interior part of the house.
Yes.
And usually in a ranch, it's going to be a closet.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But a bathroom is also typically a good place. That was the thing in Xenia, where bathtubs, even on the second floor, would still be intact. So people who had taken shelter in the tub
Yeah.
were safe. Whereas if they had not and they were in another part of the room, it was destructive.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tubs now are fiberglass, and
Yeah.
they're not that heavy iron that used to be in the homes, right? So
Yeah.
there is a difference. I don't know that the tub itself is going to protect you, but interior part
Yeah.
of the house is really key.
Yeah. And so some other things that you need to make sure is that your cell phone is charged.
Yeah.
And that you have maybe a battery backup that is charged, that's accessible in your safe spot. Some water in case everything kind of implodes on your safe spot.
Yep.
You got to wait for people to get you out.
Yep. We talked about protein bars, you know, that emergency go bag that we did.
Yes.
That's part of the things. Just have that in your safe spot so that if something happens, you've got that quick, easy access to that.
Yeah. And another thing that I thought of last night is if you wear contacts, take your glasses or your contacts down there. Because in the middle
a
of the
spare.
night, yeah, and you can't see, that could be a big problem.
Yep.
And also any life-saving medication, because you don't know how long you're going to be down there, you know, if the worst case scenario would happen.
Right. And if everything you come up after the fact and it's all blown away, you're not going to have immediate access to it. So if at least a week's worth of medication in those little travel tubes that you use,
Yeah.
that's always a good backup source.
And so documents, any like passports or IDs.
Important documents.
Important documents, yeah. So I have them all in like just a little bag. And then last night before we went to bed, we just kind of packed a bag that had everything in it. And then when the tornado sirens did go off, we grabbed the bag, grabbed the kids, and went downstairs.
Yeah. I know they were talking about, and this was added on again since learning through a hard hit area, talking about for kids and even adults, if you've got bike helmets, that's a good way to make sure you're protecting your head. I mean, you know.
When you were in school, like elementary school, did they put you in the hallway and tell you to put a book over your head?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think they do that anymore.
Sit by the locker and wait until you could get released, and nobody was paying attention to anything. Like, we were in the main hallways. We weren't even, like, in the main auditorium, which would have been the center of the school.
Yeah.
I'm like, so we're out of the classrooms, which is obviously getting us out of the way of the windows, but we're in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like, it's just right here. It didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Not in the basement, necessarily, because if you were on the second or third floor, you still just went into those hallways. You didn't necessarily go down the stair.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
And so one of the cool things, well, I think it's cool lately that I've seen like on TikTok is people showing their storm shelters. And like people that live in like Oklahoma and Arkansas and places that are really tornado alley and have always been tornado alley. Some of them are no bigger than a small closet.
Correct.
And some of them, you know, people have put like carpet or chairs. Some of them are underground, or some of them are in garages. And then what I didn't think about, so my neighbor, I used to live in Oklahoma. They're military, and so they live here now. She said her previous neighbor in Oklahoma had like a ramp for animals. Oh, and that's another thing is you need to take leashes for
your
dogs
animals,
or harnesses, cats, you know, whatever. But she said that there was no way that dog in the middle of a tornado was going to go down this ramp and get in this.
No, because you can imagine. I mean, you were talking about your dog, my dog, all active, hyper, like what's going on. Not the normal part of the evening that they're necessarily really active.
Yeah.
But animals have that sixth sense. And so, yes, you could imagine cows and sheep or horses or whatever other animals that you have, if you're trying to get them to safety, animals pretty much know what they're doing. I mean, like, maybe we just don't get animal casualty reports after those types of events.
Yeah.
But they kind of go to safety on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's available for them, I guess.
Yeah. So I did the Savannah tour at Disney World last year, right after they had one of the hurricanes come through.
Yeah.
And so I said, what do you do with all these animals when you have the hurricane warnings? And they said, some of them we just leave out. It's safer because if we put them in, they'll go crazy and they'll start like ramming their heads into the cement or whatever. So we just put them out on the Savannah and let them go and they're fine.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, so after the storm and your community has damage, what do you do?
Well, so the biggest thing is that obviously you're going to have shoes on because you don't want to walk around. If there are any electrical lines down or poles or anything, I know coming in, that's what I saw this morning, was there were several road crews working on the street lights and the power lines. So there were some that had been damaged because tree limbs come down, they catch it. So you don't want to take a chance, especially if the ground is wet, and be activated by some power line somewhere, because that's not a good feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you probably don't want to go out right away. I know there are always people that are like, oh, I want to go see. I mean, if you have things you have to do, you have to go to work, whatever routine is going to happen, as long as you can safely do it.
Yeah.
But I kind of gauge that by, can I get out of my little neighborhood? If I can get out of there, then I go a little further. And then probably by the time I've gone 5 miles or so, if I haven't been really obstructed by anything, then I'm probably safe. But as in the case with the 2019 tornadoes that we had, you couldn't usually get out of your own community, let alone go into another surrounding community, because of how much damage had been done. So even if you don't have damage in your immediate area, there could be more damage in another area that you may be trying to get to. So anytime you come across that, you just are going to give pause and let the the street crews and the repair people deal with what they need to do and not feel like, because I know I had lots of clients that I was worried about from one end of town to the other. It's like, you need me to bring anything? And they're like, honey, you can't bring us anything. Like, you can't get in here. And it's like, oh, what a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
But that was the reality. So you want to kind of take a step back and just wait and see what is available for you to help with. But in the meantime, if you have tree limbs that are down or you've had any damage, first thing you're going to want to do is call your insurance company. Not the thing that most people think about. They're trying to say, well, let me get somebody out here that can do it. First call should be to your insurance company so that you're on record for having an issue or that damage, and then they can tell you if there is companies that they work with that they can send out for immediate help or work with you to get that arranged.
Yeah. And so I would say right after the insurance companies, you're going to have the storm chaser companies that come in and they want to, oh, just let us take care of it and we'll tarp up your house and we'll repair your roof. And, and you really need to be careful who you are trusting at that point, because not all of them have the best intentions.
Well, and so like you were talking about the storm chasers that are working with meteorologists to give information, the flip side of that is that there are these contract workers who follow those storms.
Yeah.
They blow into a community that's been hit and they go out with the flyers or just in person, right, knocking on doors. And our community actually had quite a bit of the scam situation go on because there was hail, there was wind damage, and so shingles could be damaged. And if your neighbor was getting it, then everybody on the street was thinking they needed it. And these guys came in, promised the world, collected a deposit, and then never showed up.
Yeah.
So if somebody's asking you for a deposit up front and it's nothing that you can verify through your insurance company or through Better Business Bureau or anything like that, I know in the heat of this, these are not the things that you think of.
Yeah.
But anytime somebody's asking you for money before they do something, you probably want to ask more questions, like get some verification.
Yes. And then if you do have an issue, you can always reach out to like the Ohio Attorney General or your local prosecutor, because these companies need to be held accountable.
Right. They need to be stopped and penalized for what they've done.
Yeah.
I know that there's still, when you see a blue tarp on the roof, it's like, when did that happen? There's still some from 2019.
Yeah.
And it's very, very sad to realize, for a person who puts into their home and that's where they live and everything, if it gets heavily damaged to the point that you can't live there and you can't or haven't collected the insurance money, or you were taken advantage of by one of these contract scammers, or any of these variables play into that,
Yeah.
you have a home you can't live in.
Yeah.
So you're leaving to go find someplace else to live without
But
that benefit.
You're still responsible for the mortgage.
You are, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But thanks to John McManus, when he was in and he was mentioning, hey, if you have that type of damage, you want to report that to the auditor's office because you may be able to get a waiver on your property taxes or some relief. So that's helpful information to make sure, again, one of those things that you don't think about until after you've heard about it, right?
Yeah.
But
And so on the flip side, how can you help your communities or other communities after big storms like these? I guess yesterday was the third largest storm activity since 2011.
oh, wow.
Nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah, there was over I want to say 700 weather warnings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess we're supposed to go for a couple more days straight.
Well, I know we're talking about rain and flooding in our area, which isn't normal for our area to talk about flooding, but when you have 5, 6, 8 inches that come in a quick succession of time, the ground gets wet.
Yeah.
I mean, walking through my ground, it's already wet. So if there's more rain that's coming, then that's too much for it to really be absorbed and everything. So you definitely want to be careful with that.
Yeah.
I guess you want to, again, trust those that are out there that you have good experience with, that is valid as far as organizations that you want to support. Red Cross is always one that people talk to. There are other organizations, though, that really do a lot. And from a fundraising nonprofit organization background, One of the big things that you can look at is they should have their financials posted on their website. It should be valid information that you can see. Transparency is key. And if they have a lot of overhead expenses, then maybe that's not the right organization for you to support, because you want your money to go where it's going to make the greater good and do the most help, right?
Yep. Or things that you can donate. So I work with one of the local nonprofits, and we will post up in a grocery store parking lot and fill a trailer.
Yep.
And we've done a couple times and even gone out of state and delivered them. I think we went down to Tennessee right before COVID happened and delivered a whole trailer, and they had the best emergency response sorting system. We showed up, there was 15 people that unloaded our trailer in about 10 minutes. They took it in. They had in a big gym. They had everything sorted. So things that you can donate are baby items. So baby formula, baby bottles, baby wipes, diapers, because those diapers get wet in these houses. Cleaning supplies, tarps, wood, water. I know everybody always wants to donate water, and a lot of times it's just so heavy and they get so much of it that it kind of goes to waste, or it's not the best. But adult diapers, or depends. Just things that are everyday use that you kind of don't think about,
That you take for granted.
Yeah.
That when you don't have it, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you want to think about and really do benefit. I know as far as you, as your home, things that you can do prior to storms taking place is just do that. Part of your spring cleaning checklist might be just to make sure you have emergency preparedness items set aside, whether that's a chainsaw or flashlights or even a generator. Those are just helpful things that if you have the ability to use them, it's going to benefit you. We didn't lose power last night. I was surprised, but there were people that did lose some power, still dealing with it, I think, today. And so if you don't have power, in the case with my mom who was on oxygen, that was a very big issue. And we had to immediately go out and buy a generator, because otherwise she wasn't going to be able to survive that. So you think about what your specific family needs are, but also what if scenarios. And if you play that through, then you can probably come up with some really good ideas. And we'd love for you to share with us.
Yeah. So I think we've talked kind of the whole gamut of storms and tornadoes, and just, when these do come, we hope you stay safe.
Yeah.
And that you make it to the next sunny day.
And yes, they are a thing that we deal with in the Dayton, Ohio area. However, as you mentioned, we're not the tornado valley. We might be a new tornado valley, but you can safely go through and survive these types of things if you're prepared and you pay attention. So pay attention to those warnings when they come out and know what you need to do.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.